AJ, I'm going to start by saying you look great today.
Thank you. I woke up at 3 a.m. in Chicago, and now I'm in San Francisco.
Which is why I'm saying you look great.
We see the future's near. Tech that amplifies our cheer. Flying high on dreams so bold. Sold for dreams ready to be sold. Boost to the future, light it up. Podcast tales, fill up your cup. Innovation pathways bright. Journey start from dark to light.
Welcome to the Boost VC podcast. My name is Adam Draper. I am the founder and managing director of Boost VC, where we are the first check into deep tech startup founding teams. On the Boost VC podcast, we are going to be interviewing high agency, high authenticity human beings who I just want to meet, hang out with, and have fun with. I believe if I'm having fun, the listener's going to have a blast. And so that's what this is. So all you have to do as a listener is sit back, relax, and enjoy a high trust conversation with the best entrepreneurs, investors, and people doing interesting things. So enjoy.
Visions clear through sleepless eyes. VC funds the rocket fuel.
AJ, I'm going to start by saying you look great today.
Thank you. I woke up at 3 a.m. in Chicago, and now I'm in San Francisco.
Which is why I'm saying you look great. What? I want to ask you a very specific question. Do you remember meeting me for the first time?
Well,
Do you remember when we met for the first time?
I know directionally when it was. It was probably 2012.
It was like 2011, 20. It was 2012. It was definitely 2012. It was your brother actually applied to Boost.
Because your co-founder Brayton reached out to
Cal Poly.
Leslie Lambert, who was head of marketing for us, and was like, hey, Adam and I are starting, and they were in the dorms together. I think they were a year younger than me, but they were in the dorms together. He's like, hey, I'm doing something absolutely crazy. I'm starting an accelerator with my super close friend Adam. Do you know any companies that want to apply?
Perfect. Yeah. So, Chip applied. Who was making a wine company, which technology related
great VC
accelerator, wouldn't have made necessary sense. But I actually think we might have met before, and then you brought me in to meet you at your office.
Yep.
And it was like your brother right here, you there.
Our team of probably 5 at the time.
Team of about 5, and we talked about it, and we negotiated terms, and I think you guys thought you made out like a perfect deal.
We were bandits.
Yeah, you were made out with like bandits. I had a blast meeting you, but the memory that is fixated in my mind is when he accepted the offer.
Which was one of, I think, your first 5 investments.
Yeah, and your parents came through to, I think, check whether or not it was a real place. The Boost VC was like real and not like fake. A lot of people did this, by the way, because we were providing housing at the time, housing and office space.
Yep.
And I get a text that's, hey, you want to come shark diving with us?
I remember all this incredibly intimately. Sorry, not regular shark diving. Great white shark diving.
Yeah, it was specifically. I bet I could find the text.
Off the Farallon Islands.
And I'm still unsure where the Farallon Islands are, other than really far away from San Francisco. And the instructions were show up at 4 a.m.
Yep.
And I was like, I gotta go do this. I've never been shark diving. This sounds exciting. Unfortunately,
we saw a lot of jellyfish.
And the clarity of water is like 0, right? Like we saw jellyfish because those, I guess the Farallon Islands are just covered in jellyfish.
If you remember, we're on the back of the boat at like 5:30 a.m. reaching the islands, and we're like, when are we gonna start chumming the waters?
Yeah, and the guy goes, "You're not allowed to," and then all of a sudden, all of us are just like, "Well, why are we doing this?"
And we're like, "Do you have like, I don't know, a dead seal that you throw in to attract the sharks?" And they're like, No. We have a.
Oh my God! It's the kickboard that looks like a seal.
It was a Walmart kickboard cut out in the shape of a seal, so that sharks underneath pretend they see a seal on the surface.
And so that was my entrance into meeting you and Chip, and I am so thankful that
it was awesome.
Yeah, I've been able to, but I've also been able to watch you grow. As a
climb and fall
throughout your term. We started to talk about your obsession with like big crystals. I just want to know
crystals, fossils, and meteorites.
And what about collecting? Like it feels like a pretty intense hobby. I collect comic books. You collect these things. Like what led you to want to do it? Does it make you feel something?
So I actually don't have a rational response. What's funny is when people come over to my house and I have like rocks everywhere, people are like, "Oh, you're a big crystal guy." I'm like, I'm actually not like a big crystal or rock guy, but I can't explain why I keep buying crystals and rocks. Like I don't think there's something spiritual about it. I think there's energy. I definitely think there's like
you feel the energy of the compression of the, because isn't it formed by like just rocks moving together and like water being trapped in there and then solidifying or something?
So that's actually
is that a misconception?
We're gonna go down a rabbit hole on this one.
Let's do it.
Okay, so
we have 4 hours before dinner.
So I have a 2,070 pound quartz citrine crystal in my living room, and I saw it, and I'm like,
I must have that.
No, I'm like, I like look at my brother Chip, who we were just talking about. I look at him, and I'm like, I want it, and he's like,
how long you just pause?
He's like, it's gorgeous, and I'm like, I'm not buying it unless it's over a ton. And I go up to these.
So it's 2 tons.
Unless it's over 1 ton. And so I go up to the guys that 2 Brazilian guys that we've gotten very close to. They own a mine, and they've actually, you're welcome to come. They've invited us to come mine crystals, but so they. I was like, what does it weigh? Because like crystals, meteorites are generally done on like a weight-based price scale, and they're like, it's 2,070 pounds, and I'm like, oh, it's over a ton. And so I was like, tell me about the history of it. They're like, hey, we found it. We have a mine that's 9 hours outside of Rio in Brazil. It took us 9 months. We found it and took us 9 months to pull it up, and we think it's like one of our favorite crystals we've ever pulled up from the mine. And I'm like, we're getting it.
Bye.
And
if they say it's special and they're trying to sell it to me, I need this.
Another thing that you and I were talking about, like it's weird that the older we get, you have a weird way to like wield the universe to your like desires or wants, and that's actually it's speaking of superpowers, because I know you're big on this. Like, it's interesting.
And talk about I mean, that's essentially what founder mode is, right? Like you're a wizard and you're willing something into existence. How did you start? What was your first ever like entrepreneurial moment? Like if you could point at and be like,
wow,
this is AJ's origin moment, where I sold a dinosaur to a friend.
I don't have an answer for it. I want to know what yours is. Like I don't have a specific lemonade stand moment.
Mine's probably it's a sequence of moments is more how I would think about mine, but I always think I was raised on board games is one of the things. Yep. And then
specifically Risk, right?
Risk and Monopoly and chess. But my origin story, I think the thing that like when you ask me like what my entrepreneurial, most of my entrepreneurial stuff stems from 2 things. One is My dad understood I was very incentives driven.
Yep.
And like is also just like very, and he's like, okay, I want my son or my kids to be able to swim. Like that was a thing. Like he has a weird concept that at some point we're gonna be dropped like 2 miles offshore or something, and like need to be able to swim back to the shore. And so he said, for every 100 laps, you will get 1 pack of 1992 Marvel Masterpiece cards. So it's a very specific comic book.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so 100 laps though is a lot of laps. And I think that summer I did like, I don't know, I got 7 packs or something. So 700. I'm 7, 8 years old, like doing
Do you still have
hundreds.
them all?
Oh yeah, I have all my Marvel Masterpiece.
In terms of like
And so-
comics and investing, do you ever sell any, or are you just buying and holding?
Okay.
Are you hodling?
Okay. Great question. God, okay, I have a lot of thoughts on this specifically. In comic books, there are readers and there are collectors. There was a moment I became both. Like I used to just read as a hobby. Actually, my first like couple jobs that were non-tennis coaching jobs were like, I was a telemarketer for a comic book company. I was like,
That's actually probably a great job.
Oh, that's great. I worked at Boom Studios. I called all the comic book stores to see how the comic books were selling. Learned a lot about talking to comic book people.
Yep.
In college, I went to the comic book store so much that they offered me a job.
Did you take it?
I didn't, because it was like starting in the summer and I was going to go play tennis over the summer. But yeah, dude. So my origin story, I think, is some semblance of a couple things in that genre. It's not like one specific thing. It's sort of like hard work, earned incentives, and it was just like that over a period of time. You asked me about comic books, though. I am hodling is the quick answer, but I'm specifically cornering the market on one comic book. And
Don't say it out.
I'm not gonna say it out loud this time. Like people will keep thinking about it, but it's out there somewhere. Like I've definitely said it. But I own 12% of this specific comic, and someday I'm gonna write a great blog post on it that is just about how to corner a market, because it's sort of really fascinating. It's way harder than people think. Like the Hunt brothers tried to do with silver a long time ago.
Yep.
Collectibles, by the way, you're allowed to do this with collectibles.
Yep.
You can have one-of-ones things. So you could buy all the dinosaurs.
I don't have enough money for that.
Not yet.
So back to your what's the first hustle? It would be. So I was big into salt. You don't know this about me at all. I was huge into saltwater reef keeping. So growing corals.
You've told me this once, but keep going.
And so when I was 16, I got a job at a saltwater reef store, and there's like exotic corals, there's normal corals, there's like regular anemones, and there's like rose tip bubble anemones that you pair with Australian saddleback clownfish, and so there's like this. It's like Pokemon cards but for corals, and so I would, you do what's called fragging your corals, where you cut them and propagate new corals.
Yeah.
But you're controlling all the water chemistry, all that stuff. And so I think one of my first jobs in college was at a saltwater fish store, where I was making $5.25 an hour.
And you were spending it all on your corals?
Two things. I was spending it all back onto the reef tanks. And then I'd work 30 hours or 40 hours, and they'd pay me for like 10 or 15. So I started taking payment just in corals. and
saving money.
Yeah, $5.25. Actually, one of my biggest lessons actually working there was I was actually doing something I'm insanely passionate about and I'm knowledgeable about. But it taught me to never want to work a job that pays $5.25 an hour again.
That feels like a good thing. I liked your way of positioning my question around what was your first hustle. Like that's sort of an interesting way of looking at it. In which case, it's probably figuring out how to get my siblings to do something. But my first real hustle. What was my first hustle? Gosh, it was probably burning CDs.
Would you sell them?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you used to buy iPods on eBay for like
I also was the first one in my.
$150.
I also had a
loaded with
DVD
10,000
burner,
songs.
so I was the first one with like a DVD burner too.
Oh, I remember that. And you like I used to actually buy iPods, load them up with songs.
Yeah.
I'd buy the iPod Color Touch no, it wasn't even Touch. It was iPod Color. That you couldn't watch videos on it yet. You had
Yes.
to look at photos. And then I would download 16,000 songs on it and throw it up on eBay and hawk it for the.
That's a clever way to do it.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I would never have thought about that. You were charging a premium on the songs,
Content
on the
that
content
that I stole.
So the burning CDs was definitely a phase of mine once I learned how to use Napster. I talk about Napster all the time. That was my first hustle. From there, what ended up happening that you wanted to start a company after college? Because you went to Cal Poly. What led you to that next phase where you were like, oh, I definitely am going to start a business now?
So this is stuff you and I haven't talked about, and we'll get deep on it. So I was very fortunate enough to study abroad in college.
Nice.
So I went to Cal Poly. My brother Chip and I, who we talked about, we had started a winery. The only reason we started the winery, two reasons. There was a ex-Navy SEAL that said, "Hey, I'm going to give you free land if you guys do all the work. I'll pay for it, and you guys can have the wine because I just want a winery. I don't really care about the wine, whatever." So we would trick our friends. We would take a keg and go bury it in the mountain so that it was cold. And we'd trick our friends and say, "Hey, you have unlimited free beer. All you need to do is plant 1,000 vines today with us." So that's how Chip and I started the first winery. And we'd take like 20 or 30 people up, and we would just went and studied abroad in Barcelona. And my dad's like another entrepreneur. Like I can't say enough great things about my parents. And I'm like, it's not lost to me how blessed I am to have them. But my dad pulls me aside, and they came out for my 21st birthday. And he pulls me aside when we're like walking around in Barcelona, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to know that as soon as you get back home, like the party's over. Like we're not fronting any of your lifestyle. We're not paying for tuition. We're just like party's over." And I actually,
And you were like, "Party's just beginning."
No, well, I'm on a park bench talking to him, and it was like a very like come to Jesus moment, and I'm like, "Oh shit, like I need to get my stuff together." And I knew I didn't want to work for $5.25 at a fish store that I'm being paid in corals. Like I knew that that's probably not a sustainable way to make a living.
I'm actually not sure that the coral store itself did that well. Like if you were considering just owning a coral store, I don't know if it did better.
You're probably right. But so my dad has, "Hey, party's over. We're not funding your lifestyle anymore," which is great. And I actually started crying. And for those that know me, like I can get emotional about certain things. So I started crying, and I'm like, "You don't know what I'm capable of." And I'm like, "I have no idea what I'm going to do when I get home." So I come home with like $20,000 in credit card debt, which as a college student is like crazy.
Bad.
Because they like cut me off. And so I was like, I'm good at fixing things. I've always liked taking things apart. This was when the iPhone, so the original iPhone came out in 2007. iPhone 3G came out in 2008, 2009. And people kept breaking their phones, and Apple was charging $200. And I'm like, I broke my phone. I go to the Apple store. They're like, "Hey, this is way too much." I was like, I can't afford $200 to fix this. Went home, ordered repair parts online, took it apart, and fixed my iPhone screen. And I'm like, "Oh, that actually wasn't too hard." Someone at a career fair, because I'm looking for a job, someone at a career fair comes up, who's now my best friend. I don't know if you ever met Phil Axar. He comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you're the iPhone repair guy." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Someone told me you could fix iPhones." I'm like,
You're like, I did it once.
I can fix yours. And I like almost as in a movie, like threw out my resumes at a career fair, went to the Cal Poly library, fixed his phone, and I charged him $75, and screens at the time were $11. And I'm like, holy cow, like this is awesome.
You're like, I am the iPhone guy, fix guy.
And so put up a bunch of flyers around campus, flyers that were literally made in MS Paint. Like this is like my extent of my marketing.
That's the good
abilities.
stuff. Well, what else would you have used? You know, like.
And
what was the catchy slogan?
it was we named the company iCracked because people would be like, oh, my phone's broken. I'm like, I used to joke before starting the company. I'm like, oh, you downloaded the iCracked app, and I'm like, oh, I'm so funny, like blah blah blah. But I actually think one of your and I curses and Brayton and Chip, or for the most part most entrepreneurs, like actually one of our curses is I think we're so highly unemployable that we know we're gonna have to we're gonna have to like make our own we're gonna have to make our own futures forever, indefinitely.
And fortunately at this point I think we've built enough skill sets that we generally could figure out how to do it, right?
Yeah, but
I hope.
I don't think I'm ever gonna go be like, I think I want to go be a project manager at Google. Like I think I'm unemployable for that role.
Okay, as a founder, so then you started iCracked. You took iCracked to a certain level. Well, I actually want to cover like, what are like now that you've had this like history of starting things and doing things, like who are unsung heroes in sort of building companies that like people don't normally think about, because they're from my perspective, you know, families can be like.
I think there's a bunch of generic answers, and this is going to sound callous and uncalculated, and I don't want it to come off that way. So when you're, and you know the starting boost, when you're like, oh, he or she is a CEO of a company right now, like they've raised millions of dollars, like. They have the dream. They're like the captain of their own fate. Blah blah blah. And like what? This is gonna sound so wrong, but I'm still gonna say it. People have no idea how shitty and miserable of a job it is, and like that. I used to like walk home at 2 a.m. after just cleaning the bathrooms because you don't want to pay an extra $400 a month for a janitor. And I ran payroll. We had 170 employees. I ran payroll one time, and I'm paying 23 employees more than me. But don't worry, I get to like be in a Forbes article as CEO. Like, so I would say I'd actually say like for startup founders, it is so miserable and so not illustrious. But your generic answer is your unsung heroes are like your friend group and your other buddies that are running companies, and your family, of course, and your significant others. But I said actually it's like the CEOs that are underappreciated that are fucking miserable. Do you feel like that as like a general partner?
So the way it's a great question. I think that it goes in sprints. And because I started Boost, I feel some semblance of what a founder feels.
Not some. I mean, you are a founder.
I'm a founder, and I go through the highs and lows. We almost ran out of money once. We've done like we have to fundraise. We have to go through the whole
LP management.
There's LP management. There's founder management. And it makes you really fixate on what you care about, and it helps you make those decisions based off of what you care about. I was in front of the mic. I don't know if any of that was picked up, but the my answer is I think when I think about miserable, I think like, well, why am I doing it, right? Like, and it's like the reason you do it is because you actually do. Like, I love the game so much.
I do too. I'm addicted to it.
I'm addicted to the game so much that like all those things you don't notice you retroactively notice. It's almost like when you're in it hard, there's these moments, peaks where they're extreme, but most of the time it numbs a little bit. And then retroactively you can look back and be like, yeah, that was really difficult. Like that was a hard time and that was difficult. So my thing is like keeping and staying addicted to the game is sort of what you constantly are trying to reshuffle every couple of years with your career, your life. Yep. And I think that every like 3 to 7 years, as of now, it's like every 3-4 years, I'm like, okay, what adds a new element to the game for me? And like that's like this podcast is another element of the game. Like it's like, what are the new things that I can throw at the game and see if they work.
And explore the edges of the map.
And explore the edges of the game map, man. You're always so positive about like everyone around you, and you seem to be.
I love humans.
Yeah, you love humans. Do you think that mentality, is that one of the things that keeps you going? Where like, is this existence that's difficult, as we covered?
Yeah. Miserable,
difficult, and miserable. Do you still feel that it might be the best way for you to connect with people, and that's what keeps you going? Like, what's the thing?
Adam, we're going deep.
What's your energy source?
Yeah,
we're going deep.
For me personally, and this is not blanket for everyone.
No,
I actually very strongly believe like how do you do the best work of your life while having the most fun you've ever had with the people you love most, and it's
like a Venn diagram.
But like the nuanced part of that is you actually shouldn't treat, you know this better than anyone, like you shouldn't treat companies like family. Like I get to work with my best friends.
So I should rephrase all my acceptances to boost that.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome to the family. So I should be saying, welcome to my friend group.
No, well, I actually, and this is, I think there's a ton of scar tissue here, but like like I've always been like, we're not family because you could treat your family like shit. No, but you can have feuds with your brother, your sister, your parents, whatever. Like we're actually not a family.
And then you're always back. Like you get back.
No, but I'm like, I want us to treat ourselves like we're a sports team. Like it's a bunch of high performers doing the best work of their life, working together. And I think there are a bunch of like nuanced differences between
you've been saying doing the best work of your life. Like that is a great phrase, and I don't think people say that. That's not like a thing. People don't say like do the best work of your life. Where did that come from?
Oh, no, because like so if most founders don't pay themselves any money, when you're getting started, you're broke, whatever. And like if you're not getting paid money for it, how do you ascribe value to it? It's like you need your dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine rush, like from like doing cool shit.
And doing the best work that you believe you can.
That you're, and there's something weird about doing fantastic. It's like painting a painting. Like you're not getting paid for it. No one's gonna buy your painting, but you get a lot of fulfillment.
But you like lock in, and you're like, no, that's not quite right, and you're like constantly shifting it. Scott
Norton?
No, well, he's amazing too.
I need to go live in LA.
Scott's the best. Scott from Deepgram, PhD Scott, he said last time, we just interviewed him at a Boost event, and he said every night at the end of the day, I say, did I do the best work I could for Deepgram? And I'm like, that's like a healthy mentality. It's kind of in the same line that you're describing, which is sort of like, am I doing the best work I can?
So I have a real quick and easy framework that I actually think about 50 times a day. It's just, are you being a good CEO and are you being a bad CEO? And I don't
want to hear about what falls in the bad CEO's stewardship.
It could be something as simple as one of our investors asked me to do a LP meeting with him on Friday, and he says, hey, I'd love to present some portfolio companies to our limited partners. It'd be great if you can come do like a 15-minute Q&A. And if you look at it through the framework, what does a good CEO, bad CEO do? Like the bad CEO, and you're allowed to be a bad CEO. You're actually allowed to do stuff.
Probably about a 10% hit on that. Like yeah.
And so I'm like, the bad CEO wouldn't do it. The good CEO would do it. And I text him and I'm like, hey man, I'm happy to do it for you if you want me to. I want to support you, but like honestly, I don't think I'm the best fit. And that's actually an example of like a decision that that under the bad CEO framework you can make. And then the next day I'm like, a good CEO goes and fixes this. So I text him and I'm like, hey,
I'm amped.
I would love to support you. I'm happy to do it. And I did the call and it took 45 minutes or whatever. But like that's my framework is like, and it could be something non-business related. Like, should I go out and party in Ibiza for a weekend? Like the good CEO. The bad CEO would say yes, but you're allowed to say bad decisions and actually go do it. Like you're like, as long as you're realizing that like what is productive and non-productive.
Productive is better. I kind of like productive CEO because I don't know if it's good or bad.
Well, I try to keep it simple, so I just have a good.
In your head, you don't want to question your system.
I think I've thought about it at least 30 times today for just simple decisions.
Yeah. Does that even factor into you, or is your like paradox really just would a good friend, CEO, person do this or not? And does that make you just, because it feels like you're constantly moving. You're a default to movement dude.
I think it helps that I'm like, my personality skews insanely extroverted. Like I hate being alone. Like I do not. No, and I have a list on my phone of like, there's a note in my app in my notes app that says things I should talk about if therapists to a therapist with, and it's a long list because I've been collecting it for years. But like one of them is like, I'll hang out with people if I find them annoying so that I don't have to be alone. So like, it includes like people that I've dated where I'm like,
are you sure?
I really don't. I like.
You know what I call that list in my notes is my stand-up comedy. Like if I were to put on a stand-up comedy show,
you could use all my bits for like. So I don't like being alone. So I'm actually fine to get on a plane to go anywhere. For within reason, but
are you running away or towards?
Towards, like, I think it's one of those things that you. So I was in Chicago doing investor meetings, which we should talk about after this. But I get there and I'm like, I'm 70 minutes into a 30-minute meeting, and the guy's like, "Well, we've done one deal in the last 6 months," and so like, and I'm like, flew across the country for this one, but I am so willing to do 50 of those wasted days traveling across the country, spending 6 hours on a plane to and from, for one meeting that pays for everything, that pays for the whole party. Like
networks are compounding, right? Like the fact that you showed up all that time once.
Like
you'll run into those people again.
So he's not going to invest. I guarantee we're grabbing beers next time we talk, and he's going to introduce me to
the most important. The most important person for you to talk to in the next phase.
So I actually don't think it's running. That's a great question. I think it's running towards. Like I think it's like how do you compound networks where it's like the amount of my best friends that I know now because I took a sewingly meaningless meeting.
I actually believe that there are no meaningless meetings.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like let's say there's a bottom 1%, but we take tens of thousands of meetings, right?
Yep.
I think showing up and just being there and like, I showed up to an event last week where I was like, not really sure what I was going to get out of it. Got a lot out of it. Yeah, well, I mean, I met some people.
No, totally. But you only need to meet one person at 10 events.
Yeah.
And then
you will have met 10 people.
And then it pays for the party. Like one person that changes that.
Yeah, I've always, for fundraising specifically, like I always, one of the reasons that we do first checks, and we always want to be a first check,
Yep, which I think is great.
is that when we got our first check, our first real like institutional check, like
It's such a cool feeling.
yeah, we're so thankful, right? Like that's like you're I'm run through walls. I do the thing, right? And so I show, and how we got that was showing up. We just showed up. We showed up. We showed up. I actually am not sure I know about your transition from sort of like, you know, we didn't even, we haven't gone through your end of iCracked.
Yep.
Which was, from what I remember, pretty like tumultuous.
Yeah.
But what was the transition from that to, you took some time off, essentially? Not off. No, sorry, you were acquired.
We were acquired. I took some time off, as long as the CEO that bought our company is not listening to this podcast, because he's an investor in Coop.
You didn't take time off.
And if you're out there, I didn't take any time off.
Okay, that wasn't the intent of the comment, but like you went through a transition of not being a part of a startup. Brian Armstrong describes it as a pendulum.
Yep.
Like you go full bore into being a founder mode founder, and then you go, you need to take like R&R time, and you need to, so you join a bigger establishment, you figure out how it works, and then getting ready to swing back. And I remember you sort of having questions about swinging back.
Well, I was gonna not to be a jerk, I was thinking about becoming a VC. Which actually, you and I talked about my like founder fund where we all put money
it was never really well, but like pitched or formulated. It never quite made any sense. But not to be a jerk, but it was. But you were thinking about coming back.
Yeah.
What inspired you with chickens?
Yeah, so I've been raising chickens for 15 years. Got into it because I was in Chinatown in college. Wow, college really is the formative years. I'm in Chinatown in LA in college, and I see chickens for sale for $5 for a live chicken. I'm like, I didn't know you could buy a live chicken for $5.
How many did you buy?
So I bought 4 of them, threw them on the Amtrak train, the Pacific Sunliner. You've probably done the Amtrak a bunch, from Union Station.
Yeah. Not that many times, but I have done it.
So like took them back up to the dorms or to the apartment complex I was in. I was like, well, I probably need to build a coop. So I went on Craigslist, got a free dresser, built them their own like first chicken coop that was a dresser that I modified for them to.
Give us a year. What year is this?
This is 2009.
Dude, I ordered 6 ducks online.
Your ducks.
Same year. We
You
went through
raised-
this.
Yeah. Didn't you only end up with one?
You know, like let's not talk about the past. Continue.
What was its name? Didn't have
It was
name?
6, and we named them all. We'll talk about that another time because they definitely don't all exist anymore. And I'm pretty sure there's no statute of limitations on just leaving ducks in the middle of the park.
So I've been like raising chickens for fun. I like literally let these chickens go in my apartment complex, and everyone loved them. I'm like, oh, I love chickens. They would like roost themselves up at night. And I've always wanted to, and so I've been raising chickens for the last like 10 or 15 years in suburban settings, like Redwood City across the street from Oracle's headquarters. And I've always wanted to build a company at the intersection of like the thesis with Coop is how do you use smart home and AI technologies and deep computer vision mixed with backyard agriculture that enables anyone that is interested to raise chickens to be able to. And I don't think you know this. 60% of our customers have never raised chickens before. You're one of them.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I mean, I will admit that I haven't used like the cameras.
I don't even think you've set up your cameras.
I've not set up the cameras. Why? No, why? But the coop itself is amazing.
Have you really not set up your cameras?
No, man. Like it's like
I find out.
the way my checking and my balances work. Like the way
Okay.
the way my bank account works. It goes from checking to the savings.
Cool. Can you keep explaining? I'm not following. This works.
It's a Kevin Hart comedy
Oh,
special.
So we now have we started full scale.
Do you have lasers on it yet, where you could actually not only protect by knowing, but also
I want to do high pressure water guns. So how the cameras work is we have about 13 million images we've run the inference on for predator detection. So we say, hey Adam, raccoons detected with 95% confidence, door is closed, all chickens are safe. But what we're gonna do is allow you to literally aim, so it's like a video game, but you can aim and blast raccoons, hawks, whatever. It's gonna be sweet. We're not doing that until we raise probably another $10 million more.
I liked your. I wasn't worried. I was thinking about how cool it would be to blast, remote blast.
Yeah, and so you can do
also practical joke. Without any hawks or raccoons.
Yeah, so we're for sure gonna do auto targeting or
I always think about how you can use something as a prank. That's literally my milestone for technology.
Yeah. Well, on actually that in that same vein, Chris Dixon's blog post on next big things start out looking like toys. We're 100% purposely looking like a big plastic toy. The goal of the company is how do you build the world's largest decentralized food production system? So think millions of coops online generating tens of billions of eggs. We're going to launch new verticals. So we're probably going to launch vegetables, which we haven't talked about. We're going to launch vegetables monitoring probably in the next 6 to 12 months.
I love my eggs. Every morning, my kids have started making me eggs. We just have eggs. They're just always there.
But it's awesome.
It's awesome. It feels like magic a little bit, where you're just why do I still have 6 eggs in the fridge? It's just always
6-day-old eggs, and the average egg in the U.S. on grocery store shelves right now is 30 to 60 days old.
I know.
You lose 1 to 2%.
And I will admit, my body knows. My body knows.
Totally.
It loves the eggs I get from my coop. It doesn't love the eggs I get from the store.
Yeah, totally.
I still eat them, but.
That's because you need more chickens. So that's called chicken math. So I'm going to give you 6 more chickens.
We're good. We got 4. We're good on 4. We don't need more. We are going to probably do an extension of our coop.
Yeah. So I'll actually connect you to the contractor.
Oh, you want to kick back on me just putting up some chicken wire, huh?
I was going to offer to pay for it, but I guess now. But so the goal of the company is if you have millions of people controlling their own food supply and having food sovereignty, the world is a much more interesting place. I think it's so overplayed to be the world's a better place if we do this, but the world's a lot more interesting place if you put more power of food production back into anyone that has a backyard. So I think that's interesting. And then the next turn of the crank of that is I want to...
Well, I think it's fascinating to... what if there were 4 chicken coops on my block?
Yep.
And then we all were able to sell to the kid who's going to go sell these to the store.
Yeah, so in that LP meeting I mentioned earlier, for lack of a better term, and you might have one, how do you build the Airbnb of food production? How do you?
I think it's starting to look like Coop.
I think it's interesting. And I think that how do you make every person with Coop with both vegetables and eggs? How do you make them micro entrepreneurs where they can actually start selling back into the grid?
Micro founders.
And so we'll launch hyper local egg sharing.
See, if we had 3 or 4 more chickens, which I'm not going to do. I'm not getting there.
No,
Zero
they're coming in.
But we would have such an excess that we would love for them to go towards something positive, right?
Totally.
We would love to be able to sell them to an obvious place.
Or
we did get a stamp. It says Draper Farms.
Did you really?
We did. So we have half cartons that we give people.
Are they not the coolest gifts ever?
That's the greatest gift.
It is.
Everyone's thankful.
So, like,
It makes people happy.
backyard eggs are the equivalent of like a $2 bill tip to a bartender. Like, there's so much more value ascribed to the $2 than is actually
It's still $2.
$2.
Yeah, but it's cool
like,
because it's kind of rare.
It's you got Draper
Kind of
Farms
useful.
eggs.
Like it's very like people are very thankful about it.
So I think there's something we need to get to scale, and we're not there yet. We need to get to scale with that. But the more interesting thing is like if we can like start changing how like food is produced on Earth, how do we change how food's produced for SpaceX colonies on the Moon and Mars?
Obviously.
And I think there's something super like.
Isn't it cool we live in that timeline that we get to talk about that stuff?
Talk about it realistically though.
Yeah.
Like I think it's 10 to 12 years away for us, but like I want to own all food production for future colonies. That's the goal. I mean, it's going to happen. Like someone has to do it. Like I think one of the things I love my parents for so much, among a billion other things, is they're like, if I have like an ambitious idea growing up, if I'm a 5-year-old and I have an ambitious idea, like my mom would always be like, well, someone's going to do it.
Someone's going to do it. It's way better than even saying it's good.
Yeah.
Like it's literally saying, well, it's, if you don't do this, someone else will. And like it actually instills a little bit of I got to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's way better. Okay, well, how about and now like where is Coop? Like I have one. How many people have them? Like what's the rollout? What are we doing?
So we're in full scale production right now. Thousands of customers. Actually, the interesting stat, which I bet you've never thought you'd see a PowerPoint slide on this, like our Coop customers will probably generate, not probably, our Coop customers right now will generate over 2 million eggs this year. We're in all 50 states.
And eggs are pretty expensive right now.
The average like pasture raised eggs is about $1.10 each.
So you're saying that your customers are generating
millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars worth of eggs.
Yeah. What's actually really interesting is we have thousands of cameras online running inference right now on like building like the nest for the backyard. So like we're gonna roll out features that are like, hey Adam, an unknown dog is in your backyard, or your tomatoes are underwatered, or a deer is eating your basil. And I think there's something interesting.
Why are you running through your yard naked?
Naked. That's the main thing we're optimizing for. That's how we're training the model. So you can keep running in your backyard.
Backwards.
No, that's gonna mess up the model. You're gonna mess all the inference we've done.
See, I think about how things could be pranks all the time. That's like, if someone pitches me, I'm literally just thinking, okay, how could I use this tool to make someone else's life hilarious?
Yeah, but like it's like, how do we enable food sovereignty for millions of people? So that's where we're like heads down on it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, man. I don't know if this was good content or bad content. Either way, Jordan's going to kill me if she ever listens to this.
Perfect. That is the type of content I want, though. I'm trying to have as much fun with people that are like awesome. This is a blast. Hey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is fantastic. Thank you for listening to the Boost VC podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, share, and give me feedback. Get back to me with questions about the guests, about technology, about venture capital. You can reach me at Adam Draper on my Twitter handle, or adam@boost.vc if you want to email me. So I would love to hear from all of you, and thank you so much for listening to the Boost VC podcast.